It's absolutely delightful to have so many people here. This gathering is the result of some very passionate people who want sustainability to have an ecosystem here, to develop a community that is built around non-commercial, organic opportunities for us to engage, to learn, to support each other, and to grow our community. I can tell you from my experience in sustainability that most things that have had traction start in groups just like this. So I'm so happy to see you all here, and in the future I hope you will each come with things to share with our community in this forum. So in terms of the order of business, first we're going to have a video about the Sustainable Development Goals, just as a refresher, and so everyone has it right in the front of their mind what we're going to be focusing on today. And then we will have our esteemed guest. First we'll have Dr. Reem Al-Saud, who will be coming to us via video, and then we'll have Mr. Mohammed Akil. So we ask that you hold your questions till after our guests have spoken. We do have index cards that we request that you write some brief questions down that they can answer. And then after the questions are finished, we'll open the floor for discussion. We will be using Chatham House rules, which means that you are free to use the information that you gain here, but it is absolutely to be confidential and not referred to anyone by name or organization. It's really meant to be a safe place for everyone to discuss and share ideas about sustainable development. So with that, aside from getting these index cards distributed, we're ready to start. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hi. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Reem. You have, I know you can't see us, but you have a full house, and everyone is so delighted that you're here with us. So I'll just ask you to go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where in the world you are. First of all, I would like to start by thanking Noura, Mashal, Ellen, and Zawood for this great initiative and for starting the Saudi Sustainability Talk series. I think this is a very important step towards raising awareness on issues related to sustainable development and its complexity as well. Thank you very much for the kind invitation to be the first speaker of the series. I'm truly honored for that. It is also my pleasure to talk about the Saudi experience at the UN and efforts towards realizing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So for me, several years ago, I decided to join the Saudi UN mission, and it's been a dream of mine not only to work there because I believe in the work and the values of the UN, but also because I couldn't think of a better place to represent my country than in this global melting pot, as well as work towards issues that are of importance to the world as well. Perhaps some of you may be aware or unaware that the UN is not just a platform for governments, but it's also for everyone, including private sector, civil society, educational sector, to name a few. So it is truly a melting pot, a place where not only the most important decisions are made that affect us as humanity and the prosperity of our planet, but also where we can showcase our efforts as a country, share experiences with others, and develop meaningful partnerships to ensure prosperity and dignity for all. It's been an interesting journey for me because I would not have selected any other committee or department to work on besides the one that I am in now at the Saudi mission. And this particular committee is the one that is the main committee that negotiates all the plans and development related resolutions and activities, including the Sustainable Development Goals. So I started at the mission when the 2030 agenda was being negotiated, and maybe perhaps this video discussed that it covered a lot of elements that are not only of importance to the preservation of the people on the planet, but also for us here in Saudi Arabia. It was both an honor and a responsibility for me to represent my country in the negotiation process in 2015 when it was adopted. As some of you probably already know, the agenda identifies 17 sustainable development goals. They cover social, environmental, and economic aspects to ensure a future that is prosperous for both the people and the planet. So the reason why there are 17 goals in comparison to the 8 millennium development goals, because the world realized that in order to address the root causes of poverty, which is elimination of poverty is the main overarching goal of the agenda, we need a multidimensional and interconnected approach that covers social, environmental, and economic aspects as well as urban. The latter is often overshadowed by the former three. Often sustainability is understood from an environmental perspective, and people, a lot of the times you hear them talking about efforts toward mitigating climate change through, for example, sustainable consumption and production, recycling, without realizing that that is only part of the equation. And that's why at the UN, every year there is a high-level political forum on sustainable development to showcase efforts toward realizing their goals and the interconnectedness. This happens every year in July. They focus on, there's an annual review, a thematic review for a specific set of goals, and as well, some countries also volunteer to showcase their effort, whether it's for a specific number of goals or towards the goals in general. So in general, I think the UN looks at how each country is doing overall in terms of progress for each goal individually, but also on how they integrate partnership in that process. And that evaluation doesn't only happen at the high-level political forum, there's other forums. So for example, here at the mission, we actively engage in all negotiation, including negotiating the 2030 agenda itself, the new urban agenda, which was adopted the following year in 2016, among other resolutions that are addressed annually during the General Assembly, as well as other fora. At the mission, for example, our ambassador has been on board since day one, and we are a member of the Economic and Social Council, thanks to the efforts of our former election officer. So the ECOSOC, or the Economic and Social Council, is one of the 6 main organs at the UN in charge of overseeing all the economic and social related activities, negotiations, resolution, including all the subsidiary bodies of the ECOSOC. I'm not going to go into details on the UN system structure, but most importantly, the high-level political forum falls under the ECOSOC. So every year, the high-level political forum is negotiated under the auspice of the ECOSOC, with the exception of the 4th year, which is this year. It's going to be under the General Assembly. So in short, Saudi Arabia is involved in the decision-making process on how the ECOSOC works that year at the that year at the HLPF, for example, at high-level political forum dates, themes, topics, among other topics. We are also heavily involved in the UN development system reform, and this is a process whereby we aim to improve the UN development system so that it can better serve the sustainable development goals. So I negotiated on behalf of Saudi Arabia that resolution. Actually, Saudi Arabia was one of the countries that actually drafted that resolution that was later adopted by the majority of member states to ensure that the UN as a system, as well as globally, including administrative and financial reform of the UN system. So addressing the SDGs and the mission does not, like I said, only focus on the 20 agenda itself, but also on other UN processes, as I mentioned. In terms of efforts outside the mission and inside Saudi Arabia, I think a lot has been done to address the sustainable development goals. I think most importantly was the announcement of the ambitious 2030 agenda shortly after, ambitious Vision 2030 shortly after the 2030 agenda was adopted, and the Vision 2030 covers many of the themes addressed in the agenda and its dimensions, the social, economic, and environmental. Also, a lot of initiatives fall under the vision, including the National Transformation Program, among many others. I honestly believe that we were ready to present at the first HLPF after the adoption in 2016. We presented at the HLPF in 2016, but I honestly believe we were one of the very few countries that was ready to present in 2016, right after the adoption of the agenda, because we already had a development plan that covered all dimensions and involvement of all stakeholders, public, private, civil society, to name a few. In general, I also believe we are doing a lot to address sustainability challenges, and a lot of policies have been put in place for all dimensions of sustainable development in Saudi Arabia, but I'm going to focus on one, which is investment in its human capital. I think this is very important for us in Saudi Arabia, since the majority of our population is young, and without realizing the goals to meet, realizing that is very important. Realizing the goal is the sustainable development goals, as well as our Vision 2030 is going to be very challenging. So, our education budget is 17.5% of our GDP. That's about $1.1 trillion, and that is the largest share of annual budget expenditure this year. Also, with that comes effort to diversify from an oil economy and the creation of jobs for all Saudi citizens, boosting private sector and increasing private sector employment, particularly for women. Over 450,000 jobs will be created for women. Women in Saudi Arabia and almost everywhere else in the world, we represent half the population, and we are on top potential. I think I read somewhere that about $28 trillion will be added to the global GDP by 2025 if women were to equally participate in the labor market as men. That's about, I think, 26% increase. I wish I had the statistics from Saudi Arabia. Perhaps someone in the audience had that. So also there are other policies to increase the share of Saudi women's labor force from 17% to 25% by 2020. 2020 is only a few months ahead. For example, we have set targets to increase compliance with the wage protection system from 50% to 80% to ensure everyone gets equal pay for equal work. Studies numerous studies have shown that women will less likely join the labor force and gain meaningful employment and apply for high-skilled jobs if they perceive a lower return on their educational and training investment. And in Saudi Arabia, the ratio of women to men with higher education is really high, particularly bachelor's degree. I also believe that allowing women to drive will provide a great push for women to enter the labor market. Not being able to drive in the past has tremendously hindered their participation in the past. Also, removing the restrictions on women's employment choices, we are starting to, also align educational policies with labor market needs, as well as enhancing curricula. I checked with the General Authority of Statistics data in 2017. There were over 19 million registered students in Saudi Arabia. This is from primary to PhD, enrolled in some kind of educational program. And I think it would be such a great waste if we don't channel that to meaningful employment that address labor market needs and, as well as support our development ambition. Also, I don't think we will not be able to strategize and plan for our future if we don't have the necessary data to evaluate the status quo and set future projections. And over here, for this, I would like to point out the great work of the General Authority of Statistics. They have done a great job in providing publicly available disaggregated data. In fact, this year, at the high-level political forum, we held a side event at the Commission, and we highlighted labor statistics by gender, nationality, public, private sector, among other variables, quarter by quarter up to this year. This was not available before. So I think also the General Authority for Statistics is also responsible for the SDG indicators. They also have the information readily available online for anyone to access and track Saudi Arabia's progress for the indicators. So, with the SDGs, you have goals, targets, and indicators. Also, at the civil society level, the MISC Foundation has partnered with the UN to prepare the youth of today to become the future leaders to support the Sustainable Development Goals. It currently sponsors 10 Saudi youth working directly under the UN Secretariats and other funds and program, and I believe they're also planning on supporting getting more Saudis at the UN. Also, the Ministry of Energy, Industry and Mineral Resources has done great efforts showcasing progress towards clean renewable energy, as well as participating in the follow-up on the United Nations Climate Change Conference. My colleague Abdullah, I don't know if he's with the audience there today, or maybe he's watching from home, and his team, they've done a great effort in that process and also in negotiating Saudi Arabia's interest when it comes to sustainable development, starting from 2012 at the Rio +20 conference, and also leading the negotiations for adoption of the 2030 Agenda. There's also the Khalid Foundation, to name a few. However, I still think that we are missing on reporting on a lot of progress that is happening in Saudi Arabia. There's still a huge gap between what we communicate to the world relative to our efforts and achievements both locally and internationally. Even though the UN itself does not rank member states, but there is a reputable entity called the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and it ranked Saudi Arabia 98 out of 164 for this year. So the network evaluates progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. I find it surprising that we are reported to be 1.7% less than the regional average in terms of our progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And when I looked it up, it was not because we necessarily have challenges in development, but because information is not available on goals such as Goal 1, with poverty, and Goal 10, reducing inequalities. I honestly find this very strange because these should be the simplest to report on, and we have significant developments in these goals. So our global index score, unfortunately for this year, is 64.8. For example, in comparison to Colombia, Colombia is 69.6. 64.8 means KSA is on average 64.8% on the way to the best possible outcomes across the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Colombia presented twice at the HLPF 2016 and 2018, and they will also be presenting again next year. We are doing a lot as a country. There are other middle and low income countries in the region and elsewhere with higher rates of poverty and slower progress. However, they are ranked higher in this index simply because relevant information and data on SDG progress is continuously shared and publicly available. So I believe that what the world knows about us does not reflect the true level of our development, and this is the main challenge. In fact, I think we are doing way more than many other countries, not just nationally, but in our partnership with other countries, such as, our partnership is covered under SDG 17. A lot as well, we need, more work can be done as well in linking current efforts towards, sustainable development goals and how we, like I said, continuously communicate this to the global community. For example, on SDG 17, a report was published by the UNDP with the Saudi government in 2016 on the KSA development and humanitarian aid. Unfortunately, that did not continue, and we needed a report like that to continuously showcase what we are doing. I don't know, some of you already know that Saudi Arabia is a lead donor in both humanitarian and development aid. 2% of our GDP goes to supporting 95 developing countries. And in the past 10 years, we have contributed around $33 billion. So I believe if we want to speak the human language, it's about being persistent in sharing what we are doing, and not only during the high-level political forum, but in other fora and mediums as well. There are tremendous efforts worth recognizing at all sectors. We need to find a better way to present, and I believe this is the responsibility of all of us here. And it's also not just about what we are doing for each goal individually, but also cross-sectoral issues, because, like I said, all the goals are strongly interlinked. At the mission, for example, we do the best that we can at the multilateral level. For example, at the bilateral level, Her Royal Highness Princess Rima, the ambassador to the US, is also looking into integrating the SDGs to the work of the embassy, as well as showcasing Saudi efforts. I mentioned before this foundation, and every year or every other year, they hold a conference in partnership with the UN to support youth. Ministries such as the Ministry of Municipal and Rural Affairs, His Excellency former Minister Abdul Latif Al-Sheikh and the Deputy Minister Abdurrahman Al-Sheikh have spearheaded efforts towards realizing the new urban agenda. For example, an initiative in Human Habitat called the City Prosperity Index. Information on that and progress on Saudi cities is readily available online. and they've also attended and presented at every single conference related to urban development. I mean, I could continue on talking about our efforts as a nation and what we can do, but I think the time is limited. So I would like to conclude with stressing that we definitely do have a lot to share in terms of progress, experiences, lessons learned, but also challenges, and that we need to communicate with the world, and we need to take advantage of these opportunities available to communicate all of that, and as well as what we are doing for our people, our nation, the people around the world, and as well as for the planet. So with that, I conclude, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reem. Thank you. Thank you so much. You just had a wonderful round of applause. Thank you so much for being our first speaker. It was wonderful.
I mean, I'm going to hang on for for Q&As.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Mohammed, it's your time. So in terms of the PowerPoint, if we just address that, and then...
You're going to change from there? No, you
could. Would you like to? Okay.
It's going to be, we'll try not to use the media, so the camera is on, I guess, right? So, hello everybody. My name is Mohammed Al-Aqil, and today I'm going to present to you an overview of SABIC SDG roadmap. So, in fact, we recently published our Sustainable Development Roadmap last month. So, right now I'm just going to give you a brief how we started, and we're going to go from there. But before I start, I want to say how honored and delighted I am here to be here today with you, and I thank all the hosts, the guests, and all the people working behind the scenes for making this happen. And as you mentioned, it's good that we start with this, a lot of things happen at this such level, and inshallah we'll continue this talk. So today's talk is going to be about SDGs. And Dr. Aeon just mentioned about the efforts that Saudi mentioned. So I'm going to try to focus on the private sectors, but let me begin by saying how we are always reminded that SABIC was established on the sustainability. Established in 1976, SABIC role was to take once flared gas that was produced from the oil productions into valuable products. And so we're built on the aspirations of sustainability. And through that was our sustainability journey since 1976. And we have grown so vast. Right now we have more than 33,000 employees. We operate in more than 50 countries. And we are the third largest petrochemical company. That's just to give you a brief how we started and how big we are right now. But moving into the main point of this today, so we're talking about the SDGs. So the role of the private sectors is in achieving the sustainable development goals is an indispensable one. The SDG presents a significant value and business opportunities for all private sectors. We're talking about over $12 trillion US dollars, and creating maybe around 380 million of jobs created or retained. So there are a lot of business opportunities behind it. So advancing the sustainable developments require technology, requires and innovation. And those are the most powerful drivers in our global economies. These in turn require investments to achieve those. With the right regulatory environment, private-public sector cooperations, policies, and incentives, I think private sectors are well positioned to establish all these. So 2 years ago, or when the SDGs was adopted in 2015, as just mentioned, we created a task force, and we went through 17 goals, 169 targets and their indicators, and we looked, okay, where SABIC can tap or can benefit using our current practices or future opportunities, and we have selected 10 SDGs. Those 10 SDGs you have seen the screens, number 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 17. Those are the SDGs that SABIC selected where we can contribute the most. As businesses rethink their strategies and grapple with how they need to change their organizations, I'm sure you will agree first that the SDGs can present a significant value into growing your organizations, business value. So, the SDGs provide SABIC and private sectors with a roadmap of global sustainable needs. These one that can help guide the investments decisions, not only investment decisions, but they also support global needs. So if we start from our operations, SABIC or companies provide employment to thousands of employees, enabling them to providing their families and along with providing solutions, for example, in our case in SABIC. And those solutions can contribute to products that you manufacture. And the products that you manufacture, sustainable product you manufacture can be, for example, agri-nutrient solutions that you can have the same farmers can use solutions to produce vegetables, for example, more vegetables on the same plot of land. Another example would be, for example, using our products, sustainable products for water to be delivered to some areas that cannot be achieved. And we map those solutions after all, and thus can contribute to Saudi transformation programs and Vision 2030 initiatives. So as you see, they also provide the best opportunity as a sustainable circular business strategy through the whole value chain, starting with operations, products, and going back into visions. So what we just produced, the report we have produced is so how we did it, and that's a lot of companies try to grapple with. They don't know how people do it, and that's, I think, one of the challenges. We have been through this journey. It was a very challenging journey, but it's one that's rewarding. So what we did, if you look at the report, it basically outlines the contribution and the future opportunities for SABIC, and thereby creating a platform to ensure that the goals remain focused or central in our business strategy. We also use it as a tool. We can use it as a tool for actively engaging the business and the goals remains focused. So after we selected the 10, we started reaching out, the task force started reaching out to business units, functions in our organizations. As you may know, for example, SABIC, we have agri-nutrients business units, specialties, metal, petrochemicals. So we have business units that you need to reach out to them, and that's the first step. You need to reach out to your stakeholders and ask them for initiatives or on the SDGs we have selected. After we engage with them, we collected the case studies and the initiatives. We identified 20 impact opportunities where SABIC can contribute or use those for future growth. When we identified the 20 business or impact opportunities, we saw that they can be clustered into 4 themes, and those are innovative and sustainable solutions, climate change, circular economy, and partnering. And those are the themes we have created. We also mapped the impact opportunities to our materiality. So materiality is an assessment that we do every 3 years to see where we can focus our business. And why we map them is to give us, or to give the business and the stakeholders, internal stakeholders as well, a streamlined vision and facilitate the planning and thinking, keeping focus on where you're going, and that's the most important part. The roadmap articulates our commitments and in a holistic approach to sustainability and outline inspiring initiatives that we are doing in each SDGs, not only for business growth but also to achieve global needs. So, in a nutshell, or I want to conclude with that, the SDGs provide commercial, private organizations with a framework that is powerful and ambitious to achieve, that can create business goals, that can create business opportunities, while also combating the global needs that we're facing, or the challenges from environmental, social, and economic standpoint. So by aligning the business strategies, and I want to conclude this with, by aligning the business strategies to SDGs, I think companies can also better manage their risks and unlock opportunities. And I want to leave with that at this point, and I want to see if anybody has any questions. More information we're happy to provide. I hope this can give you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions that you've written on your cards, if you want to hand them in to me, I'd be delighted to present them to our esteemed guests who will answer them. Okay. Yes, Mohammed, I'll go ahead and start out for the questions. I mentioned to you earlier how delighted I've been to come visit the Home of Innovation that SABIC has. And to me, that's a great example of sustainability and innovation. Can you tell me, am I correct in understanding that that is part of how you manifest some of your SDG commitments through the Home of Innovation? Or could you correlate the purpose of that facility with your SDG goals?
Actually, the Home of Innovation original idea was a few years ago, I think before the SDGs, where we want to create programs because SABIC provides solutions to all. And it was an idea how we can bring all solutions into one place, where you have the Home of Innovation as a platinum, the demonstration house is platinum LEED certified place, which is based in King Saud University. And those, whatever, the house is built on sustainable solutions, mostly produced by SABIC. So that was before SDGs, and that's one of the things when we asked the initiatives and the case studies, we used Home of Innovation as one. But that will not stop there, but we'll go and see what other case studies we can have.
So although it was created before the SDGs were launched, it becomes a platform for SABIC to perhaps engage in further innovation as part of your goals. Is that correct? Okay, great. It's a wonderful facility. If you haven't all attended a visit there, it's really worth it.
I'll encourage anybody, if you guys want to visit, it's a very truly amazing demonstration house.
Okay. So question for Dr. Reem. Dr. Reem, how does the kingdom benefit from the support mechanisms that the UN provides for the 2030 Agenda? And how does this trickle down to benefit national and private entities as well, please? Thank you. If you could start again, please, Dr. Reem.
Yeah. I wanted to say that, first of all, it's very important to note that Saudi Arabia was one of the founding members of the UN. And, that really gives us great leverage when we are in negotiations, being a founding member versus a member that joined the UN later. In terms of how it benefits, I think, being a member of the UN, we have a great say in what happens. It's a consultative process. The General Assembly includes 193 member states. Usually resolutions are adopted once there is agreement among all. But as I mentioned before, we are a member of ECOSOC for this year and next year. So this really gives us great leverage in, negotiating any resolutions that fall under the Economic and Social Council for those 2 years, like I mentioned, including the high-level political forum and other economic and social related issues at the UN. We also have several, we have different relationships with different UN bodies. So at the public sector, for example, we have a UNDP office in Saudi Arabia. At one point, we had a program with UN Habitat that followed up on the new urban agenda, as well as other urban-related development progresses, such as the City Prosperity Index. The UN Habitat helped Ministry of Municipal and Rural Affairs established that. And at the private sector level, I'm honestly unaware of any direct relationship between the private sector and the UN. And I guess that also depends on, the initial agreement between the UN and a member state. If it stipulates that everything has to go through the public sector, it means that, the entity involved is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I also mentioned that the MISC Foundation has partnered with different UN funds and programs, and the Secretariat as well. This year they are holding a youth forum in New York with the youth envoy. Appointment 2 years ago, or perhaps 3 years ago, I lost count. It was with the UNDP, and every year there's a different agenda that supports youth and is also linked to the sustainable development. I hope that answers the question.
Very good, thank you so much. We have a question for Mohammed. Mohammed, can you share with us, please, what type of climate change license was acquired by SABIC? Please describe.
License?
It could mean also, are you engaged in any kind of offsetting or anything where you're publicly declaring?
We're actually very involved in trying to achieve climate. We're trying to mitigate or adapt to climate change. We actually have our climate change specialist here in SABIC. SABIC is, we have CDM projects. We're one of the first who issued, we have a project in Al Bayruni where we're one of the companies that issued credits here in Saudi. I think it's the first as a private company. But we use those credits. You can use it. It's, for example, the clean development mechanisms use these credits to offset any projects you have, for example. And one of the things we have done is we actually got our SABIC HQ a few months ago, or last year, I think, a few months or last year, that it's carbon neutral as a whole SABIC HQ, and there was a great achievement to have the SABIC HQ climate or carbon neutral headquarters.
That's wonderful.
That's one of the examples, yes.
Thank you. Okay, I have another question for Dr. Reem, please. What efforts are being made to address the gap in data availability and actual Saudi progress? Has big data and AI, artificial intelligence, been explored as possible solutions in terms of tracking data?
So as I mentioned in my presentation, the General Authority of Statistics has done tremendous effort in providing disaggregated data that was not available before. And when the 2030 agenda was negotiated, it had goals, it had targets, it had indicators, and the indicators are being evaluated each year, depending on the geopolitical, social climate. So some indicators change, and I believe that the General Authority for Statistics is keeping that in mind in making sure it provides disaggregated data, especially population data that was not available in the past. And as I mentioned, this data is publicly available and reported on each year. I think that to understand what future plans there are in terms of AI, I'm not sure I'm the right person to respond to that. Perhaps that question, if there are, I hope there is. If there's any one from perhaps Ministry of Economy and Planning or the General Authority of Statistics or a technology related entity could perhaps shed some light on this type of questions.
Thank you, Dr. Reem. Next question. So this is for Mohammed. So I'm going to put this out to either of our guests, please. How do we encourage more companies to develop sustainable strategies? For now, a few companies are doing it, but we need a critical mass in order to make a difference. What can the private sector do, and how can government and nonprofit sectors help? So I think you can both provide great answers to us.
I don't mind starting first. I actually wrote an op-ed on that, and it's on the website on the Saudi Sustainability Talks on Forbes Middle East. I think also, unfortunately, a lot of the times there is this misconception that sustainability is only environmental, but sustainability covers all three dimensions of sustainable development. And the UN is starting an initiative led by CEOs from 20, from some of the largest 20 companies around the world. They haven't, I guess, yet identified which ones. It will be announced at the SDG Summit this year, later on in September. And the whole point is to engage the private sector to learn what are the lessons learned and how the private sector can propel sustainable development. And this allegedly has been made following a Swedish model, because Sweden is the #1 ranked country when it comes to sustainable development, largely because of their efforts in partnerships and all relevant stakeholders, whether it's civil society, private sector, public sectors, have all taken it upon themselves to support sustainable development goals in their country. So the Secretary General announced earlier this year that this is going to be modeled toward that, and also because they're changing the perception on what it takes to fund a sustainable development, and we're looking at it in terms of financing. So financing means looking at what are the returns on investment. So it's like it's not a one-dimensional approach where you're simply handing money. It's more looking at what are the returns on investments for all entities involved. I also in my article, I hope you get a chance to read it, but I talk about the example in Syria and the war in Syria. So there are studies that show that the civil war in Syria started due to, it's related to sustainable development and climate change. So climate change caused a lot of drought, which caused the farmers to migrate to the cities, which increased the price of food and resources. Eventually, that created riots. And the reason why I'm mentioning that, because prior to that, the government developed a plan to engage the private sector, the public sector, and civil society. And that report can be found online to support sustainable development in Syria at all levels. However, private sector did not comply because they did not see the return on investment, and they were only focused on the economic aspect of it. And I think this is where the role of I don't want to put the responsibility only on the government, but I believe the global community and also the private sector themselves have to understand the interconnectedness of sustainable development, and that economic benefits cannot outshadow environmental and social. And even if there is more emphasis on economic benefit, on the long run, that is going to have a negative effect on the environment and society as well. There is a UN-affiliated entity called the I'm sorry, the name, I believe it's called the Global Compact. And the Global Compact is made of companies from the private sector all around the world that voluntarily participate to showcase their efforts towards sustainable development. I'm happy to share that last year there were no companies from Saudi Arabia registered, but this year the Global Compact mentioned that some Saudi companies have joined the efforts to voluntarily showcase what they're doing towards sustainable development and how that is positively impacting their business. Thank you.
Please.
No, I think you covered great points, Dr. Reem. And I want to make sure, I want to reverse what you just mentioned. Some people have the conceptions that sustainability is only environment, and I think that where the struggle of some companies, you don't see the long pictures. But it's important to know that I think the SDGs are government initiatives, or they should be tracked through government, but they also provide business opportunity for businesses, private sector, and that I think where companies should realize, or they can focus on. And regarding the United Nations Global Compact, I'm surprised to hear that, but Saudi is a signatory for United Nations Global Compact since 2010, and we always keeping updating with that, and every year we provide the COP, which is the communication of the Global Compact. And it's great effort that a business can do for global positions as well.
Thank you. Thank you both for that. Let's see, we'll move on to the challenges for, Mohammed, could you please share with us some of the challenges for private sector to implement SDGs?
So that's a very loaded question, and I think it's a lot of us want to hear an answer to that. And I cannot just summarize it in one or two challenges, but I would say the most important one is the stakeholder engagements. That's number one. You need to engage your stakeholders, internal and externally. And I think when private sector engage and see what others are doing internally, even internally, sometimes when you have a big company, you cannot even know what is going on internally. And externally, then you can at least work on that. Another challenge, a lot of people, I think private sectors, in accomplishing or achieving SDGs is they don't see the long term. And some people, you should have not only 1 or 2 years return of investment, but rather you can go beyond 5, 10, 15 years and see where you can have those, because your business might not be here in 15 years. And that's a lot of things with the whole technology advancements, etc. You need to make sure you are meeting global future. So I say these two challenges are the most achieving sustainable development goals. And the list can go on and on, but that's what comes to mind as well.
And I'd just like to go a little deeper on that, please. Do you find in your organization that it's required to nominate people to be guardians of your SDG efforts, or do you find that people are naturally drawn toward facilitating these initiatives? What I'm hoping to gain from you for our participants here is how much you have to have someone who it's really part of their job to be driving SDGs. And is it one person, or does it need to be in each department? If you could share with us some observations on that, please.
Well, I think in our organization, we're still early in this stage as far as SDGs. But what I can tell you is envisioning, it should not be one person. Envisioning, it should be in each function. There should be a person who at least they know about it. It should be embedded in our DNA. And that's, I think, where it comes to achieving them, because we need to live it by everyday activities, not only one project, one initiatives, and that's it. But you also need to practice it outside of work.
Thank you. Mohammed, another question for you. What are the legal requirements set forth by regulators on waste management and environmental impact limitations? What is being done voluntarily by SABIC?
Waste management, it depends, since we operate in many countries, so each country have its own regulation when it comes to waste. I'm talking about industrial, because in South Africa we produce manufacturing. So I don't know if that's the intent of the questions. As far as waste, it depends on the country or the place. Jubail and Yamba, for example, here in Saudi, is overseen by royal commissions. But as far as initiatives, we actually have KPIs on waste. So we have 4 operational KPIs that we want to achieve, that's reducing greenhouse gas emissions, energy, and water by 25% intensity-wise by 2025 compared to 2010 levels, and material loss by 50%. And that's a challenge KPIs, and we're progressing. And you can see our sustainability report. We have every year we monitor it, we report it, transparency. We see what we're lacking, where we're behind, and how we're overcoming it. Another thing from waste perspective is the alliances, and there are a lot of big for example, Alliance to End Plastic Waste, and that's an alliance that was announced last January, and SABIC is one of the founding members in this alliance. And this alliance is combined with, it's about $1 billion to $1.5 billion to combat plastic waste around the globe, because when you realize plastic waste it's not managed properly usually, and we have around 10 rivers, that's where the plastic waste end up. So this alliance was created by a lot of big company CEO. I think they already have it in the website, and we're glad that SABIC is one of the founding members to combat. I think SABIC.
My name is Mustafa Sheri. I'm Muhammad Bas, but I'm his
Welcome.
colleague tonight. SABIC operates the largest CO2 plant in the Middle East. We can process up to 1 million tons. We own the technology. By default, we emit CO2 in our operations. However, we can capture the CO2, clean it, and reprocess it in our operation. And we've done that 6 years ago, even before the SDG were approved and implemented. We operate plants from China all the way to Americas. Of course, our heavyweight is in here in Jubail and Ember. We operate according to the Royal Commission of Jubail and Ember standards. I can tell you, because I've started my career in Aramco, they are very strict in releasing anything to the sea. We need to treat it. When there is an opportunity, we can reprocess it in our operations. We are a board member in the Saudi Investment Recycling Company, which is owned by the PIF. So basically, we work with them in order to utilize our experience, not only turning the waste, but we will add value. So the household waste in Riyadh City will be turned into a feedstock, where we can promote the circular economy instead of the linear economy, which will be hurting the environment in the country. As Mohammed mentioned, I think we started 10 years ago. I think we were lucky that our management supported sustainability even before it was mandatory. If you ask me, I think most of the companies, they practice sustainability without even knowing. You are working in Giddy and you have an excellent opportunity now to establish the platform in terms of technologies, in terms of making sure that you reduce your footprints in the environment. Now when we build our plants globally, we make sure that even if there is an extra cost, extra capex, but we enforce and tell the business, even if you invest 20% extra, now this will save us in the longer term. You need to start from the top. I can tell you, if you want to start from, it's a top-down approach. If you want to do it from the bottom, forget it. Nobody will listen to you. I can tell you from experience, we are more than 30,000 employees. You cannot talk to them, but if you enforce it through the board, through your executives, I think you will have a better chance of succeeding. And people will engage with you. You always try to sell the achievement, share the achievement with them, because at the end, we are a corporate function, and you cannot be everywhere in every single meeting, but the business people, your workforce should be the ambassadors for you, because I believe if we truly practice sustainability 100%, then you will not need the sustainability department in your organization, because every department will do its own sustainability practice.
Absolutely. I'd like to direct a question to you, sir, from one of our participants that I think is in alignment with some of the things you just touched on. The question is, one of the recognized SDG-related themes is circular economy. Could you please enlighten us more on how SABIC defines the theme and how it integrates it within its operations?
I think as we are a material company, so the more we produce, the better for us. The more you sell more revenue for you. However, we have realized that 3 years ago there was, I would call it a war in plastic. People start, because if you leave it to the media, to the public domain, most of the people, they miss the technical part. Plastic, if you compare it to other materials, I think it's the best solutions we have. Because at the end, you need a material to carry on our daily lives. If you compare it to metals, steel, or wood, plastics, that's why we promote the life cycle assessment. You need to see where you extract your material and use it, then if you can, you put it part of the system. We are the first company globally to establish the chemical recycling. It is part of our operations in Europe. I think some of our customers already process our recycled polymers in their products. I think last week, one of the ice cream brands already sold this in the market. We present, usually we give the update in Davos. So we have a session around circular economy. We had it last January, and we're going to have the update. Basically, the idea is a technology challenging, but the idea is whatever waste comes out of your own operation, if you can circulate it back. So in our case, we do it in both ways. The CO2, our plant in Jubail. So basically, we capture it, purify it, and reprocess it again. And also we have our pilot plant in Europe. And also the good thing about SABIC is whatever success story we have globally, we can translate it in other regions. So whatever we have in Europe, I can work with the Saudi authorities here to have it part of our operations in Jubail or in Inaugural. I don't know who asked this question, but if there is a specific information he wants to share or add, I can connect offline.
Thank you so much for that offer and for your specific examples. I have a question for Dr. Reem. Dr. Reem, you mentioned in your presentation the importance of the progress on ending hunger and achieving equality. As a guest in your country, obviously I'm here as a foreigner, it's been my pleasure to get to work with many strong women here. Can you please give us some guidance for the foreign women in the room, how you would appreciate seeing us share with the world the progress that is being made here?
Thank you very much. That's a very important question, but I just want to make a few comments regarding what has been said before. First, I would like to thank my colleague Mohammed here for mentioning your participation with the global compact. I think this is exactly why we need talks like this. So thank you very much for highlighting that. I think that's very important. And also regarding the article that I mentioned on, the importance of partnership in sustainable development in the private sector. Unfortunately, that's not the one published on the Saudi sustainability talks, but I could provide a link for that. But it's on Zawiya and Thomson Reuters and not Forbes. The one in Forbes is about women in the Middle East and STEM. So to answer your question, I think. And I've talked this in very many fora in the past, including in the U.S. I feel that a lot of times women sometimes shy away from sharing their accomplishments and achievements, as well as equally participating in the labor market or elsewhere, because they feel that they may not be have necessarily the relevant qualities or skills for that particular job. And I believe some studies have shown that, again, this is not just the gender issue, women versus men, but a lot of the times men tend to apply for jobs that they perceive could be below their skill level, but they sort of have the, I don't want to say courage, but the perseverance to apply for the job and make up for any gap I mean, that also in addition to, what I had mentioned in the presentations, if there are perceived wage gap or perceptions of unequal opportunities in the labor market, then women will tend to, I guess, not pursue the education that they want, or perhaps they could apply for jobs that, or even training or education that are, of low skill in comparison to high skill training and jobs. And I believe in Saudi Arabia, hopefully I see things are changing. Women have always had equal opportunities in education, and now more equal opportunities are available for us when it comes to work and also getting to work, which at a time was a great disadvantage. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Ellen is going to close for us for this session.
Thank you so much to our wonderful speakers and to you, Holly, for moderating. This officially ends the live stream. Thank you all for participating with your great questions as well. I would just like to add that Aeon Collective, at the end of the Sustainability Talk series, will be publishing a book on all of the topics that were discussed. We are going to have a closed discussion on our Chatham House rules, but if you would like your comments to be attributed, please do say your name. Otherwise, we are happy to have comments contributed anonymously. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Mohammed.